Hi everyone, it's Rob Watson, the module leader for TECH1502 Introduction to Community Media, and this is the 11th overview of the lectures, the last one before the Christmas break, so we get a bit of space and time to kind of recover, relax, get on with some work, catch up with the coursework that we're doing, that kind of thing. So what's this one about? Well, it's entitled Against the Mainstream, and what I wanted to focus on this was kind of we've talked about DIY and alternative media in previous weeks, and kind of the sense of identity that is associated with that, and the kind of sense of social purpose that is associated with that. But what I wanted to do, particularly in this session, is really to look at kind of what that means more formally in terms of what we might call resistance media, or radical media, and how this is expressed. And this is something which is a process which happens on both sides of debates, if you like. So it's both a progressive or a conservative or regressive phenomenon, as much as it is a kind of social liberation kind of phenomenon as well. And one of the things that we need to understand our media, the context of our media, is to think about what Noam Chomsky talks about in terms of propaganda, and how is the media that we see, is it free from value free, is it neutral, or is it serving somebody's interests? And on a global scale, our media is controlled by a small number of billionaires and corporations, and how does that impact on the available options that people have to be publishing and sharing ideas and expressions of interest in political debates online. So we return to the notion of kind of the grassroots and what it means to be embedded in a alternative media culture that rises from below rather than being imposed from above. So one of the things we've got to think about is who controls our media. Who is it that sets the agenda for what our media is able to do, what it gets away with, how it frames debates and discussions? Do we see this as a pluralistic and encouraging many players, or is it just leave it to the marketplace and somehow it'll sort itself out by magic, which I think maybe we've reached the end point of thinking that our politics is somehow working in some kind of way when our media is dysfunctional and ever narrower, in my view. So what do we mean then by alternative news? What do we mean by counter-hegemonic media that pushes back against this mainstream view? Our lives are filled with an enormous number of day-to-day anxieties. How do we connect these anxieties up into a political campaign and program? And what role does community media or alternative media have in kind of articulating the voices and representing people in this way? So we're looking and thinking about social activism, and the idea that media is a projection, or alternative media is a projection of a form of politics, even if it's a big P or even if it's a small p politics. Just the sheer fact that people are talking for themselves, of themselves, within their own communities and to or about their own communities is actually a political act. It's not free from political opportunity or political influence, if you like, as much as mainstream media and large-scale organisations would like to kind of deny. So the question is, what is media power? Why is it that some organisations are more powerful, some media groups are more powerful than others? And what can we do about that? So one of the models that alternative media puts forward is the kind of Adbusters style campaign, so kind of subversion, parody, a kind of way of encouraging participants and activists to reshape. I mean, we've seen recently the Hope Not Hate campaign running a campaign, a social media campaign online against advertising in newspapers like the Daily Mail and the Daily Express, and we're starting to see some companies refuse to advertise in these newspapers because they don't have values, if you like, which are more inclusive. That's the word I'm looking for. So how do we develop a model, if you like, or a framework which helps us to kind of develop an approach to alternative media? And in what way does the media, the community media that we propose to produce ourselves serve a community, and in which way does it provide an alternative to the kind of media that is associated with our civic life, or the media that's associated with our mainstream commercial activity? What kind of form would democratisation of the media take? And I think one of the big projects for community media is that it is a democratising concept and movement. It's not uniform, it's not consistent, it's not well funded, it's not got kind of significant figures who can rally people behind them, but it is something that people look to as a kind of a platform which allows people to push back against the kind of prescriptive monocultural views that mainstream media tend to offer automatically and without challenge. So it's the idea that this is a challenge, a kind of maybe a protest to some extent, but definitely a kind of pushback to the way that kind of mainstream media practices dominate what we think about communication, modern communication. Okay, so the notes are available up on the DMU Commons wiki at wiki.hour.dmu.ac.uk, and I'll see you at the lecture on Monday morning. That's when we're meeting.